Okay, so pet sounds, if I'm not mistaken, gives you a giant array of something that looks like that, right? It's just a giant thing. So let's look at this array first. So it's an array of objects. How many things are in this array? There's 3 things, right? Now that might seem like it's ridiculous. This is a whole bunch of stuff, right? But there is actually only 3 things in the array. There's 3 giant objects. Here's one of them, right? Here's another one, and here's another one. Now, each of these giant objects, each of these 3 giant objects has one key and one value pair. Okay? So for the first giant object right here, it has one key, which is dog, and its value is another object. And that other object has a bunch of key value pairs. Correct? And the same thing is with the other 2, right? One key and its value is another giant object, but this object has a bunch of key value pairs. So the point is to write a function that takes in an animal and a country and see what kind of noise it makes, right? And return like a string or whatever. So let's write this function now. So we have const pet sounds. This is going to take an animal and it's going to take a country. So, first thing we're going to do, so the sentence should be like animal in country say sounds. Right? This is what the output is going to be. One sentence, right? One string. With animal being a chicken, a cat, or a dog, and the country being any of those countries, and the sound being any of these sounds. So, if you get the animal, since the outer thing is an array, the first since we know here, the order because it's an array, right? So we could just do no, but you don't know what's being inputted. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to loop through that array, right? Set I equal to 0. I is less than the, what is this? Animal noises. Animal noises dot length and I plus plus, right? So we're going to loop through that array, and then we're going to say we know that each of these objects has one key value pair, right? One key and the value is a giant object. So we can say if animal, should we pull it out? No. If animal noises at I, this is going to be an object, right? So what can we do with an object to get only its keys? Object.keys, right? So if we do object.keys and pass in the object every time, we're going to get an array. Object.keys returns an array of keys. But we know that there's only going to be one key in each of these objects, right? So to access that one string that's a key, we could just do .0. So this, each time you go through the array, object.keys and pass it in animal noises. Oh, wait. Ush. This goes on the outside of the .keys of 0. So this whole thing will be either dog or chicken or cat. Because you're throwing animals at I, the current thing. There's three things. The current thing is going to be an object. We throw that whole object into object.keys, and what object.keys spits out is an array of all the keys, the strings. But we know that there's only one key. So we know at 0, that's going to be either dog, cat, or chicken. Have I lost anybody? Cool. So if this is equal to animal, because that's what we're checking, right? We want a specific thing. So if this is equal to the animal that's being put into the function, then we're going to do a lot of stuff. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. So now that we have the animal, we can say, well, I guess over here to make things more clear, we can say let's current animal, right? Current animal could be animal noises at I, at I, and this could just be current animal, right? This is the same thing, right? We just pull out animal noises at I right now and just put it into a variable, because that's always going to be the current animal, right? We don't know what animal that is because we don't know it's being passed into the function, but that will be the current animal at that point of time in the loop. So the reason I did that is because it will be more clear in our if block here when I write all the logic to pull out the other stuff, because we know we'll be talking about the current animal, and we won't be doing that mess of like bracket I, bracket 0, bracket whatever, you know? So now, if we look back up here, so let's say, for sake of argument, the current animal is this, right? This is the current animal, and the animal is equal to dog. So, current animal so we could do current animal at animal. Current animal at animal, we know this is true, right? Because we determined that the current animals, the thing we pulled out of object.keys, that one key, we know that's equal to the animal that was put into the function. So we know that this will equal an array, an object that we're looking for. So now, current animal at animal is going to be equal to this. Current animal at animal at country, right? Current animal at country will give us, if it was America, it will give us this, right? Who's confused by that? How we found this. So basically, current animal is animal noises at I, right? Animal noises at I, let's say I0, is this big object. We do object.keys, and we get an array of dog. That's the only thing object.keys gets us if we pass in this single object, right? So, if we know that, and then we check if this is equal to whatever you're passing into the function. If it is, we know that we want to access this array, not the other two. We want to access this object, okay? So, we do current, so we pull that out. Animal noises of I is the current animal. That's this big object. So we do current animal at animal. And animal is the thing that's being passed in here, right? We're checking to see if those are equal, so we know that's what we're accessing. So we do current animal right here at dog. Current animal at dog will give us the value. And the value is this thing. So it's an object. So like you do multi-dimensional arrays, array at 0, at 1, you could go further into arrays. You could go further into objects by just giving it another key. And all these keys are countries. So we know that this person, whatever calling the function, is giving us the country. So if we do that at animal at country, we will get the pet sound. Right? Is anyone still confused by that logic? Hmm? Zoom in a little bit? Is that better? This is too big. I can't do that. Yeah, this is okay? Okay. So this is going to be equal to animal sound. So we can say, oh, but it's that's mad annoying. But the first thing we have to do is we have to make the name of the animal before we return the string. We have all the information, right? Before we return the string, we have to make that into a capital and a plural, right? So the way we can do that is saying reach, how do we do this? So we could say, we could just do like a bunch of stuff, let capital, no. How should we do that? We can say return, okay, animal at 0 equals animal at 0 dot to uppercase, right? You can access strings with indexes, right? So animal at 0 will be the first letter, right? So I'm just reassigning that first letter to whatever was uppercase. So then we could just return animal, which will be capital dog, plus S. What is the sentence? In plus country plus a space, say, space, plus animal sound plus this. Huh? You don't need the exclamation point? Oh, is that this? Oh, it's already in this. Oh, okay. So if I do console.log of, what is this? Pet sounds. And then we'll pass in dog. And we'll pass in Iceland. Nice. So I did something. Let's debug, right? Console.log current animal at animal. Yeah. Oh, I miss. Oh, goddamn. Cool. And if I say cat. Oh, wait, that's not uppercase. Oh, that's not right. I thought that would work, no? Oh, right. Animal equals plus animal dot slice of 1, right? What? Oh, I'm not. Whoops. Is it dog? Yeah. Cool. Okay, that's my bad. Sorry. So you reassign the parameter after you used it in the object. You take that first character, turn it into an uppercase. This returns an uppercase D or an uppercase whatever, right? And then you add on the rest of the animal using animal.slice at 1. This makes one string. And then here, we add the s here to make it plural. And if you wanted to, you can also, whoops, you can also do return and do this like quote stuff. Return, what is it, $sign bracket? Animals in $sign bracket, country, say, animal sound. And it should be the same thing. So yeah, I mean, making that dog like that was a little tricky because I forgot to do that. But the main purpose of this problem is knowing how to access inner objects. Accessing objects inside of arrays, and those objects have other objects in them. That's the main point, you know? That's the main takeaway from this problem. Does anyone have any other questions on this? Is anyone still confused by this question? Nobody? Really? Should I do another question? Any takers? No? You guys can say something. You don't have to just like ignore me. Okay, cool. Whatever. So objects are honestly not that bad. They just kind of I think they take a little time to get used to because they are different, you know, working with them. But they are easy to get. So just keep that in your head. This is easy, and then it'll just like, you know, don't stress yourselves out if you don't get it, all right? It will come eventually. It's fine. So the thing that we're going to talk about today is object methods, okay? Now, object methods are essentially, you have a key, and then the value is a function, right? That's what an object method is. When I say method, I'll show you guys an example. So let's say that I want to make a calculator. Let's say I want to create a calculator, and that calculator will add and subtract and calculate, you know? So first, I will do let calculator equal an empty object, right? So let's say we want this calculator to add two numbers together. So we will call this function add, but it's going to be the key. So the key and a value will be function, an anonymous function with no name. It will take num1 and it will take num2, and it will return num1 plus num2. Add is now a method of the calculator object. So how do we use this, right? Well, if you recall, the way that we get values of keys in objects is dot or bracket notation. So we can do the same thing. We can do calculator dot add and invoke it. 1, 10. And we get 11. This looks a little familiar though, right? This kind of looks like dot push or dot slice, right? That's because push and slice are also methods. They're methods off of objects in JavaScript. They're built-in methods for you off the prototype of the global string and array objects. You don't have to worry about prototypes, really, but those things, dot push and dot slice, those are functions, essentially, you know? They're doing something. To uppercase is doing something. It's a function. You're invoking it, right? 2 uppercase is its key, and the function does something else, you know? So add is the key in this object, and its function you can invoke by just doing calculator.add. You can add methods too, the same way you can add any key value pair, because methods are still key value pairs, right? Just the value is a function. So if you do calculator dot subtract, subtract, set that equal to function, well, I'll just do this. It takes num1 and num2, whoops, and this is going to just return, sorry, num1 minus num2. So then, if we console.log calculator, we see that subtract was added right here. You see this looks a little funky in the console, but you see add is a key, and you see that it's a function, add. Subtract is a key, and its function, that's weird. That's weird that it's like that. I don't really know why. But like you see that they're in the actual object, right? So if they're in the actual object, you can call that the same way. Subtract 11 and 1. It's so slow. You got 10. It's that simple. If you make an object, you can just dot off it and define a function. So you can make something that stores functions. And that could be very powerful. That could be a very powerful tool. To have an object that just holds a lot of functions, right? Like this calculator. If you're calling calculator.add, you know that there's a calculator object that has a bunch of calculation functions, right? So this could be very useful. Are there any questions? What's up?
So the object is a big object that has all the two push, two shift, all that.
Well, no, those things are off the array object, the global array object.
But the object is
Yeah, basically, like the global array object, string object, number object, they're all objects, right? So that those objects hold a bunch of things.
so the key would be push, and it
Yeah.
would say this is what you do with push
Yeah.
inside the object.
Yeah, but
That's
push
just
is
like root.
yeah, but like let's not talk about that. Because it's like that is like a whole different topic, yeah? Like the global objects in JavaScript. Because remember, JavaScript is an object-oriented language. So really, everything is sort of an object if you think about it. You know, as you move on after this course. Yeah, it gets a little tricky. Are there any other questions? Say it again? Oh, so like you're saying how I named these in subtract num1 and num2 and these in add num1 and num2, if that would change? No, that doesn't. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't affect anything. Because it's the same thing like if you're defining them in the global scope, these objects and the parameters, those parameters are defined at the local scope. You know? So if you remember all that scope workshop stuff, if you define a function inside of a function, and those two parameters were also num1 and num2, then things would get a little tricky, right? Yeah, the function name is the key. Well, sort of. Like, Yeah, I mean, it's still like it's still a key value pair. That's what's going on right now. You're not like writing you can't do like down here. You can't do subtract. Like that doesn't exist, right? Subtract is a key off of the calculator object. So if you just did console.log dot subtract as it is, oh, what the hell am I doing? Console.log, just subtract. What is that key? It's a function. It's a random function. That's the value, right? So these are, it's not like object methods are functions. Object methods are key value pairs where the value is the function. The key is still the string. If you do object.keys on calculator, you'll still get an array with add and subtract. It behaves the same as an object. Any other questions? Any other questions? So, let's say we wanted to improve this calculator object, right? I know calculators are kind of boring, but like, I don't know, it makes sense to me. So, let's say we wanted to add something else. We wanted to add a total key, and its value is 0, right, to start. So now there's a total key inside of the calculator object, and its value is a number. So let's say we wanted to call the object methods inside of calculator to update a value inside of the same object. So we want to update the total, and these add and subtract. Add will now add to that total, and subtract will now subtract from the total. This is where things get complicated. But this is just an intro to this specific term. It's the this keyword. When you say this inside of an object, an object method, this is referencing the actual object itself. I will show you what I mean by that, okay? So instead of returning num1 and num2, I will say this, and this is not just going to take a number, right? We're just going to add one number to the total. That's what we're doing now. You can just write this dot total plus equals num. This is just referencing the entire object of the method that it's inside of. Right? This is inside of the add method, right? So this is referencing the outer object, calculator. So this is saying this is basically equal to calculator. Calculator has a total key, and that value is 0. So we're just going to add the num to it. So down here, if we do calculator dot add 5, and then we console.log calculator dot total, and I'll do this also here. Oh, I don't need this anymore, sorry. Oh, why is it 1? What the hell? Am I doing? Oh, that's why. You get 0 the first time, then you say .5, calculator dot add, you pass in 5, 5 goes into this function. Num is now 5. This dot total. What is this dot total? This is referencing the entire object that the method lives inside of. So now this is calculator. Calculator has a total key, and its value is 0. So we're now setting that equal to whatever was before plus the number. Plus equals num. Plus equals 5. So if you do this a bunch of times, you get 20. You just can keep adding 5. So let's rewrite the subtract thing, the subtract method, to do the same thing. This dot total minus equals num. So if we have 5 down here, we have 20 here, then we could console.log we could do 10 here instead. And then we could console.log calculator.total. Okay? This dot total minus equals num. Calculator.subtract. Why doesn't that work? It's a function. This dot total. Oh shit, what the hell? Something always goes wrong. Oh. Okay. I didn't even realize this was going to happen. So this, okay. This is the main, see this right here is the main difference between arrow functions and regular functions. Okay?
That we can't use that sometimes. Like,
so this is an exact reason how. So this is no longer, this is my mistake. So this is no longer referencing calculator. This is now referencing the object that the function was written inside of. And the function was written inside of the global object. And the global object does not have a total. So that's my bad. We won't get into that though, but just be wary of that, okay? So now it works. Oh, not constant. Calculator dots. Yeah, so now we get -10. That's my bad. You guys don't have to worry about the global object and this context of the global object. You don't even have to worry about arrow functions for this course and to get into full stack or anything. But it's just something that you will have to get used to sooner or later. So yeah, that's what arrow functions do. They take this context of wherever it was written from and passes that down into that function.
So in the you were up in your calculator with the add, you were saying this.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's calling the total from.
Yes. This is accessing total from calculator.
So now, the reason why you can't say calculator got total because it's in the object, so you can't access the object.
I think, I don't know. Let's see. No, it's the same thing.
So you can access the object from the you can access it
I think so. Like if I just added like test here. Yeah, I mean you could do that too, I guess. But this, it's like, sure, you can do that if you know the key value pair, I guess. If no, because you need to do that too. You need to know the object's name then, you know, to do it that way if you wanted to. So
So, according to that, let's say based on what we had for the workshops with some objects were just an index value, an array, this would be the only way to call it.
just say that again.
So, if we go back to the MyZoo inventory,
Yeah.
what we did before, you know how
The
those
function I
objects-
wrote.
Yeah, those objects didn't have a name; they were just an index within an array.
Yeah.
So this would only work because you can call it with another. This stop would work.
Well,
With that object.
on that object, not the entire array.
Yeah.
Though. Not on the array.
Just-
Like you can't access an outer array with this. This is solely for objects.
Yeah, but I was asking, accessing that object within the object. At that point, you can because it has no name or there's no constant name to call it. This would be
Yes.
the way to
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yes. For sure. That's another valid point. Yeah, you're right. So if like you don't set an object to a variable, right? You don't set an object to a variable. Let's say you're getting an object in as something from a function. To access that object, it doesn't have a name or something. You don't. Well, it would if it was a parameter. But let's say it's just it doesn't have a name. You would say this. Yeah. No, 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 no. No, wait, no, you can't do that, no, because the this, like in here, hold on, let me just show you guys, let me just, it's not like an object has a this, you can't like dot this, you know, this is just a reference. And it's referencing something where it's written. So, like, if I'm writing pet sounds, shit, 1 sec. Yep. 1 sec. If I'm writing pet sounds and like, I try to console.log this here. Oh, I'm not doing anything. Wait. Wait, what? Oh, I have. Oh, sure. Like this is not this. This is not the This has nothing to do with animal sounds or pet noises or anything. This is the global object. Because it references the object where the function is defined. This is for functions. You know? It references the object where the function was defined. So the pet sounds function is defined in the global scope, in the global object. So this is referencing the global object. And the global object, like, I don't even know about the global object because it has a lot of nonsense in it. I'm not going to sit here and read this is like a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't, maybe I didn't understand your question before, but yeah, you can't like dot this off of an object and get something, you know? It's specifically for writing object methods. You access the object it's inside of using this. Okay, so this is a very complex topic. This is a very introductory, okay? But this is also very important. For the future. I mean, it's not that important. I don't even think, I doubt this would be on like the exam. I don't think they would like ask you about this in the interview to get into full stack. This is just sort of like, hey, there's this thing called this. It works like this, and you can Google about it if you want to in your free time. But it is a much, much larger topic, so don't like waste your time at this point to diving that deep into it if you don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a big thing. Like, this is very complex. And the this keyword is very different in other computer programming languages. And the this keyword in JavaScript is a lot of reasons why other people don't like JavaScript, because it is very confusing. But it's also very useful, so. Who has any more questions? Everyone guess what object methods are, right? Right? It's the key when the value is what? I heard someone whisper function, I'll take that. So let's just dive into the slides, and then I'll open the workshop for you guys. You guys can go crazy. Go nuts with the workshop. Okay. So we're just going to talk about what is a method, creating, accessing, and running a method, and an intro to this. So methods are actions you can perform on a value. So we've been using methods through this course like .indexOf. These methods are built into JavaScript, and we don't have to define them ourselves. So we have this array countries, right? And then we say countries.indexOf, and then a string. It looks through, index of is a function, right? You're invoking it. But it's a method because it's off of something. So it looks through this thing for this value, and it returns us the index. It's at index 2. Brazil is at index 2. Right? You guys are familiar with index of and other things like that. So we can create our own methods too. So they're saying like, hey, consider this object Grace Hopper. It has a key first, a key last, and a key rank. And respectively, the values are a string Grace, a string Hopper, and a string rear adder. Simple object, right? So objects can hold any type of value, including functions. And if we add a function to this object, that function is now a method of the object. So if we do a key, my method, and its value will be function, console.log, I'm from a method, then we can call it by saying gracehopper.myMethod will give us I'm from a method. It's pretty simple, right? If I said yesterday objects can hold anything they want to, they can obviously also hold functions. But we can also use those functions by doing it like that. You take the object, dot whatever, and that's how you do it. We call them the same way we call the built-in methods. It's the same thing. So methods on an object generally should perform an action that's relevant to the idea or concept represented by the object itself. So this is more like best practice when you're writing function methods, you know? Like here it's saying, oh, this is a Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper is a person, right? First, last, rank. But then there's a function that says say quote, and it's just this quote, right? This kind of, oh, maybe she did say this quote actually. Wait a second. So this makes sense. But let's say that there was a method on here that was like an add method, like add 1 + 1, you know? That doesn't make sense to go inside of this object. It's easier to ask forgiveness than it is to get permission. There it is. So that's just kind of like a best practice thing. You know, if you're like writing an object and all the things inside of the object are linked to the name of that object and what it's going to be used for, so should the functions. so should what the functions are doing. It should be related to something within the object, you know? So, here is another example of an object method. So they had getAge over here, and it's a function that takes in year, right? And you're writing this function like you would normally, right? It's just on the opposite side of this colon is where you start. So the key is getAge, and it's just an anonymous, there's no name in here. It's just function at year, return year minus 1906. So if you do gracehopper.getAge at 2018, you get 112. Right? Who's confused by how calling getAge and passing it 2018 gives us 112? Who's confused by that? Nice. All right. So, what is this doing? So let's give Grace Hopper a greet method. Greet will work, but it's a bit redundant to type out Grace's rank and last name twice in the same object, right? Hi, name, I am Rear Admiral Hopper, and it passes a name, right? Hi, Karen, I am Rear Admiral Hopper. So, instead, we can do it like that. We can do, inside of the function, we can access the entire object like this. GraceHopper.rank, GraceHopper.last. And you pass it Gabe, and it says, hi Gabe, I am Rear Admiral Hopper. Does everyone, these are simple functions. Everyone understands how this is happening, right? Like, you're calling .greet down here. Greet is a key here, so Grace Hopper object has it, you can access it by .greet. But it's a method because it values a function, so you do .greet and invoke them. And this function takes a parameter name. So if you pass Gabe to that, then it's just going to console log hi, then whatever that name is, then I am, then it will console log gracehopper.rank. And this is possible. You can do that. Gracehopper.rank is Rear Admiral. And then gracehopper.last is Hopper. And that's what you get in the console. No questions, right? Or maybe there is a question. Who have I lost about methods? Anybody? Okay. So now we will talk about this. JS has a keyword, this, that you can use to reference the object in a method. So, like this other example where we had gracehopper.rank, gracehopper.last, you could just do this.rank, this.last. Because in this scenario, inside of this method, this is referencing the Grace Hopper object. This right now is equivalent to the Grace Hopper. And the Grace Hopper object has a rank key, and it has a last key. And that's what this is. And it's not a copy, okay? It's the actual object. Yeah. Huh? Yes, sorry. Same thing, yeah, it's the same thing. But that is pretty much how this is being used in this scenario. It's referencing the object that the method is inside of. And this is super complicated, so just be aware of that. Even I don't know that much. I mean, not that much. I don't know like everything there is to know about this keyword specifically, you know? I'll be real with you. I just know what I need to know about it. So it's literally just another reference to the Grace Hopper object, to the actual object. Okay? It's not a clone. It's the real object. So if you do something in here that changes something inside of the object, and then you console log the object later, that object will be different. The key value, well, the object will be the same, but the values of anything you're changing will be different forever because you're changing them there. Because this is referencing the exact same object. So like here, we say let returned object, and we're going to set that equal to Grace Hopper dot get this invoked. Dot get this. So get this invoked, that must be a method, right? So where's the key get this? Here it is, and it just returns this. Oh shit. So if returned object is this, and you console log returned object dot first, you get Grace. And you say returned object is triple equals Grace Hopper, you get true. Because they're exactly the same. This is referring to Grace Hopper. So if you pull that out, if this is the return value, so this will be what the returned object is, it's going to be Grace Hopper. So like back here, oh god, I forgot I was doing this. Back here, if I said if I did like get obj and it's a function, and it just returns this, and then we do let test equals calculator dot get obj, and then we do test dot add of 2, and then we console dot log calculator dot total down here, and also up here, you see that calculator is the thing that's being updated. Because test is calculator. Who's confused by that? So, does everybody agree that when you put the this keyword into an object method, this is referencing the entire object that the method is inside? So, in this case, when I'm saying this is calculator. Who does not? Who says no? Who says I'm wrong? Good. So I'm right. This is referencing calculator. So now, get obj is a key whose value is a function. So get obj is an object method. It's a method on calculator. So we can call that. And we call that down here, right? Get obj calculator.get obj. So get obj returns a value. So you can set that thing invoked to a variable, and that variable will be whatever get obj returns. Whatever calculator.get obj returns. But get obj is returning this. Oh, where am I? Okay. Get obj is returning this, and this is referencing calculator. So really, you're returning calculator. So, and if this is returning calculator, then test is calculator. And if test is calculator, test has add. And if test is calculator, then that means calculator, its total thing, when you add to it, is actually being updated. If you console.log down here, test triple equals calculator. What the you get true. Because they're talking about that same object that's up there. They're talking about that same thing that was up there. Who's still confused? Is anybody still confused by how this is working? Okay. Oh, they have this too. Okay. So example calc. So they have num1 and num2, right? They chose a different approach. So they did num1 and num2. Num1 is 20, num2 is 30. Then they have two object methods inside of calc. That is sum and that is difference. They're both functions because they're both methods, right? So this function returns this dot num1 plus this dot num2. This dot num1 is what? This dot num2 is what? So what's 20 plus 30? Yeah, it's 50. So when we console.log calc invoked down here on top, we get 50. Then over here we say calc.num2. We're going to set that now equal to 15 after we do the console log of the first calc.sum. So we'll set calc.num2 equal to 15. You guys remembered yesterday that that's how you can reassign something, right? In an object, you just access the key with the dot, calc.num2, and you just reassign it. Same thing like you would do with a let variable, right? This equals this now. Oh, that's what it is. So calc.num2 is equal to 15. So then when you run the difference, this dot num1 is 20, but this dot num2 is no longer 30. Now it's 15. So you get 5. Right? Who's confused? Everyone okay? Okay. So, yeah, there's a disclaimer. There is much more to this. JS is an object-oriented language, which means objects and their methods play a key role in most production JS code bases, which is very, very true. On the job, if you get a job in JavaScript, I mean, you don't need to get a job in JavaScript, but if you do, you're going to be dealing with a lot of objects and a lot of methods, and a lot of this, okay? So just be wary of that. So we're only skimming the surface of this and object methods in this course, and there's lots more to learn as you progress. So it's okay. But you guys get the basic understanding of everything that I just said, right? Everything I just did. Does anybody want me to do something again? Because I don't mind. It's pretty early. Do you guys like longer lectures or longer workshops? Longer workshops? Opposite? Mixed? Just want me to stop talking and get off the stage? Do the workshop? Yeah, I mean, I personally like workshops better, but I was just curious, you know? So, if you guys do decide to go through with the bootcamp, this workshop process is going to be the entire bootcamp. Well, the first half of the bootcamp. You get pairs, you sit with somebody new, and you do that every day, and every day, and every day, and every day. And it's fast moving. You do like 2 workshops a day. It's really fast moving. There's like lectures in each of them. But the class will probably be a lot bigger than this. Not a lot bigger. So, any other questions before you guys take a break and I open the workshop? I'll be real with you, like the Sudoku project, you can honestly Slack that to me whenever you want. It doesn't have to be due anytime. You can do whenever, get back to me. But I think the EXQ next Yeah, I'll look at it. I'll look at whatever you guys send me. You know, don't feel weird about signing it. It's like it's just an excuse to just stop working. Just like, yeah. If you guys have questions about Sudoku, definitely Slack me and I'll help you with that. It's no problem. Oh, also, Sudoku is not mandatory. You guys know that, right? You don't have to do it. I do recommend doing it though. It's good practice. It's like a more complex problem, and it'll definitely help strengthen, especially arrays. Your array knowledge. Also, your object.
Does it cover everything that we've learned up to this point, or does it include some you know learn next Thursday?
No, not like next week stuff. I don't think this week. But I'm pretty sure you have to write a bunch of object vectors for that. No, maybe you don't. You can't really remember. But like it'll be okay. It's more with arrays than objects. Because it's a lot of grids, basically. Grids are all arrays. So no more questions? Okay, take like 10 minutes and then I'll 5 minutes and I'll open up the workshop, okay?